Welcome to the latest Centre Court Masters Festival with Poets and Quants. Where have the last 6-7 months gone? With my co-host, John Byrne, we're delighted to organise this Masters Festival, which of course is this tremendous opportunity to look at the wonderful, wonderful selection of specialised Masters programmes that are available from the Masters in Management, which of course is a flagship for so many of the top European schools, but we'll also be hearing from schools from Baltimore across to Los Angeles, talking about supply chain, business analytics, you name it, they have a program for it. So over the next 2 days, we hope that this will prove to be, of course, of tremendous help with your personal plans for next steps in your career, and of course, where a master's fits in. For the first panel, we're very much focused on the Masters in Management, which, as I mentioned, is a program that European business schools have excelled at in the last 25, 30 years. And of course, one of those questions of when you might consider what is typically a pre-experience master's program versus perhaps waiting another 3, 4, 5 years to then consider the full-time MBA. So it's a delight to welcome 3 of the top schools. It's always lovely to have Sophie, Dimich. Sophie is the Director of Student Recruitment at HEC Paris, and of course a program that has been at the top of the rankings for so many years. And she's also joined by Sarah Touven, who is the Senior Program Advisors for the Master's Programs at the Vlerick Business School, and of course their campuses across Belgium. And also with us, Virginie Fougiat, the Global Director of Recruitment and Admissions at INSEAD, that now has completed, I guess, their first intake of the Masters in Management. And we look forward, Virginie, to hearing some of the stories from that first class, and of course, everything to look forward to. But Sophie, if we can start with you, and perhaps just sort of place the MIM, the Masters in Management, in that wide portfolio of different programs. It's been around for many years. What does it cover, and where does it fit in terms of that more sort of pre-experience, early stage business school experience that some of our viewers are looking for?
Mm-hmm. So the MIM has been around for a long time at HEC, and I think it's our flagship program because it offers such a fluid transition to your professional career. So it's a lot of people are like, should I do a generalist program or a specialized program? And the great thing about our Master in Management is it really offers both. So the first year is this generalist phase where you can customize the program through these different electives. The foundation classes help you really continue to build on a strong foundation in business. If you haven't studied business already, it's a really great opportunity for you to do that. And then, of course, because we're a business school and we offer a lot of contact with professionals, a lot of our students choose to do an optional gap year where they'll do 2 6-month internships, for example, 6 months in marketing in a luxury company and then 6 months in consulting. This gap year helps you not only gain more experiences and network for your future career, but also help you decide what you want to specialize in your second year. So the second year of the Master in Management program offers over 20 different specializations or 20 different international double degrees. You can also specialize in the SEMS International Business Program. So many opportunities. And the great news is you don't have to decide what you do in your second year until later on in your first year. So it's just, like I said, a great way to transition towards your professional career and continue building on your business knowledge.
Right, so there's something for everyone, and we'll be talking with colleagues of all of your schools from the careers side, whether it's consulting, marketing, the many opportunities. Sarah, I think tomorrow we have an interview with one of your graduates from the digital marketing program, and very enthusiastic he is. But perhaps just to Sophie's point of, here I am in my early 20s, and I haven't got life all worked out yet. So this idea of sort of exploring, specializing versus that more general management focus, similar sort of choice and thought process that takes place with the programs at Vlerick?
Definitely. I think for us, especially the Master in General Management, indeed, Master in Management is the idea that you have such a diverse audience of all these students that might not have that economics or business background, but indeed very eager to get in touch with business life. are very eager to get those skills, get those projects, and a bit similar to what Sophie was mentioning, kind of discovering all these areas of management, all these areas of departments that you might roll into afterwards, but kind of want to have already that initial experience, let's say. So whether you indeed want to get more and find out more about where your strength actually lies and what kind of topic you might be best suited for, whether you come from a engineering background, psychology, economics, or linguistics background, or if you already know, where your strength lies and you really want to go, like Jose already mentioned in the Facebook interview that you were talking about, going into marketing, but then focusing on digital or focusing on sales. That's indeed two different pathways, and I think equally relevant, just really based on your personality, your background, where you see yourself going, or if you don't know yet, indeed exploring all these different options.
Well, I guess we'll be talking about those next steps, even in the application process, and how they might share, for each individual, what the master's means. Virginie, Sarah was talking about, some of the very different academic profiles that people will come with, whether they've studied art history or a STEM subject. But this is sort of a general management focus with the Masters in Management at INSEAD. Does that mean that it attracts a particular person that says, now it's my chance to study business? Or do you have those that have studied business already at the undergraduate level?
So indeed, we have about half of the class who will have studied business administration prior to their master in management. We also have people who've studied economics, engineering, humanities and arts, the lawyers as well, the law studies. So we have all these different academic backgrounds. I agree, you are perfectly right. And just one thing that is also important to remember when looking at masters like this is it's usually something that we have crafted to enable people to start off their career, so more as a launch pad than as an MBA or a master that you do after a few years of work experience, and you capitalize on this work experience, you share it in the classroom, and that enables you to resonate with your own experience as a professional. The way the Master in Management and INSEAD is created is really for people who have, on average, they have 8 months of work experience. So they are quite junior. They have had 6 months internship or a year of work experience, and then they decide to come back to their studies or to continue on their studies. So this is the way we have created it. It's really for junior professionals or early careers.
Right, and that early careers, Sophie, I mean, 8-month average at INSEAD, this is there is the opportunity to come straight out of university to pursue the Masters in Management, but the upper limit would be what, 1 or 2 years of experience?
Yeah, it kind of depends, but really the maximum is 3 years. 3 years to really benefit. I mean, it's then you'd be shifting more to an MBA program. So it's just a question of which program is most adapted to your amount of work experience. And for the Master in Management, it's really maximum 3 years.
Right. And do you find that individuals already that have studied a subject at undergraduate, that now entering the Masters in Management, whether at HEC or any of the 3 great schools, it's then providing perhaps a structure and a framework to really start the next steps of career planning?
Yeah, a structure, a network, for sure. I think that one of my favorite things I just learned recently when I was attending an HEC Foundation event was that let's say 5-10 years ago, students would drop out from their programs, their master's programs, because they wanted to create their own startups, and it wasn't compatible with continuing their studies. And now at HEC, across our master's programs, we have 100 students every year creating their startups and completing their programs. So it's the school's responsibility to adapt to what the students need and want. And I think there's a need and a want to be impactful leaders, to be entrepreneurs, and it's really up to the schools to shift and accommodate that. And so I think that seeing that transition in the last 5 years to they were having to drop out to we want to support you is absolutely incredible. I think that's true for all business schools.
Right. Sarah, do you think that the masters, it's also this opportunity, you know, perhaps you've done your undergraduate studies in your home market, you know, your domestic market. And so looking at the masters, you know, this is the golden opportunity to really gain international experience reflected in the incredibly international makeup of the Vlerick classroom.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, that's the nice thing. And we were talking about it just before. You come to Belgium, you come to Brussels, it's really the heart of Europe. You get to meet with all your fellow students, but also any of the professionals that are just literally working around the corner in some of the multinationals here in Brussels, or a little bit further even. I mean, I think that's something that came out of the pandemic as a sort of a nice to have, is that everyone can go very hybrid. So even if we're not allowed to travel that much or cannot get everyone here, well, we can definitely make sure to meet them online. So everything is now also hybrid. Any of our career events where you actually get that one-on-one coaching, we immediately reach out to some of our alumni, hoping that it's, you know, a good time zone for them. But even if they're then here in the States or anywhere else, we definitely reach out to them, and it becomes an even, you know, bigger international global network, I would say. I mean, of course, now that we're allowed to travel again, it's nice to also visit, you know, the bigger capitals within Europe, but it's really that full mindset of, and that's exactly also what we look for in our students, that they have that open international global mindset, you know, that they really are willing to learn from each other. And whether it's, like Sophie said, looking for that great idea to have an impact in the market and maybe start up something with one of their fellow students, or actually go out and work for a startup in, I don't know, somewhere in the States or in Latin America. And in that sense, really, you know, the sky's the limit, basically.
Right. Virginie, if someone sort of says, well, you know, I just can't work out, maybe I should wait another 3-4 years to do the MBA, and yet it's really exciting, you know, to think about how I could have this wonderful sort of accelerator, you know, at this early stage of my career. What do you and your team sort of share in terms of your insights to help them make that decision?
So first of all, we also share applications among the team. So in the team, we are able to say, do you see this profile more for MBA or for the Master in Management? So that's the beauty of being a single team and being able to recommend one program rather than the other. After that, we also go with the career aspiration. So if people have had already kind of 1.5 years and wonder whether they should continue for an additional 6 months or a year, or whether they should do the Master in Management, and if they continue do an MBA later, is usually, what do you expect out of this study? So would you like to be ready to have a try in some industry, and then maybe check if that is not exactly what you want, or give it a try and then come back to an MBA later? So the Master in Management enables people to try out. So they could potentially do a Master in Management, try a sector, and then do a transversal move to or another sector. Where for the MBA, people have had a career already, so there are already some sort of path. So we also question their career aspiration post Master in Management or post MBA, and we see what makes sense and what would make more sense in terms of career progression and where they would be able to enter a sector. Some sectors, like the finance sector or the consulting sector, are very structured in where you can enter at what level. So we also question that with them. And sometimes if they tell us, well, I already know I want to be a consultant, then we know that the MBA may be suited, maybe more suited after a few years of experience, because a consultant is not an entry level in that sort of company. So we also advise them on what is after the program, not just during the program and what they can expect from the program, but also after.
Right, and alongside that professional track, Sophie, this opportunity to also explore at that more personal development level. I mean, don't you have them sort of meet with monks for thoughtful self-reflection, or the circus? I seem to remember at one stage, but you know, it was a great mix. I mean, how does that fit in this sort of journey of growth and development that the students at HEC are undertaking?
Well, I think becoming a future business leader or having an impactful career, it can't just be learned in the classroom. And so we really have to try to incorporate this 50% practical approach to the program. So that can be done in any number of ways, either through, we have these FACT courses where you can get field work and study a project and then go to whatever country your project is located in and really work on it concretely. Or in January, we have what's called the academies. I think they're a really great way to have you apply what you've learned in the classroom in a concrete example. So for example, we have the Crisis Management Academy where students are put in a classroom with a couple other classmates. They have a few minutes to learn about what their company is, and then they get a call like, all right, you guys sell lasagna and we just found out that you sell horse meat in your lasagna. How are you going to address the press, address this internally? And you know, what company doesn't go through some sort of crisis? So now, you know, you've thought about what it's really like to be under pressure. And what's kind of fun for us is our marketing team, for example, pretends to be different news organizations, and they get, you know, really close to the students and with film crew and everything. And it really puts them in this context of, you know, real life examples. So yeah, there are the Film Academy where you can make a short film, just things to think outside the box. And that's a really important part of the curriculum.
I shall obviously have to look carefully under that first sheet of pasta the next time I sit in front of a plate of lasagna. I mean, Sarah, with what, you know, both Virginie and Sophie are describing, it also strikes me, you know, here's this you know, talented, dynamic, enthusiastic group, and you throw them this challenge, this crisis management that they have, and it's all about the sense of the possible. I mean, do you notice a particular level of sort of energy and optimism and can-do attitude?
Definitely. I mean, that's exactly what makes that energy alive on campus. I mean, for us, it's not exactly the same with lasagna horse meat example, but they do have every year a deep dive challenge. This year they had it with Roche Diagnostics on healthcare and data, and they really have to come up with a real life issue that the company is at this point tackling, and they all jump into it. And literally it's 48 hours, some of them not even sleeping that much, but they want to really come up with a real life recommendation for the company. And then of course with Roche Diagnostic, it was very, you know, specific in healthcare, but if it's for Nestle or for Unilever, maybe actually 6 months down the line, they might see some other recommendations, you know, incorporated in a website, incorporated as a strategy. So that really brings out that energy, because they of course want to do well, want to use all the skills that they have learned, you know, in the classes and outside, but really also want to make their mark if ever they would like to work for that company, of course. And it's just nice to kind of get away from those books and not see how things, you know, are supposed to happen in theory, but actually really get to do them and get to work with something like prototypes, or indeed set up, you know, a video ad campaign for a very specific real life project.
Right, it sort of brings it all home. And I guess with that energy, Virginie, you've spoken about, you know, just what a joy it was to welcome MIM students to INSEAD. They also get to interact with those MBA students in their late 20s, early 30s, and presumably also EMBA students. How does that sort of networking also then create, you know, great conversations, learning opportunities, and possibly, you know, even career outcomes from all of that exchange?
That's a very interesting question, because we actually looked at it and considered how can we create this synergies and channels to be able to have the different populations communicate. So we have an amazing team that is, we call it the student life, the student experience, and they foster this. So they were the one at the center of this. So this is going through student clubs, for example. So we have the student clubs that can be either the sports clubs, but also some professional sectors like the consulting club, the finance club, the tech club. So all those clubs will welcome full-time students, so MBA and MIM, and the MIM will be asked to participate in the same way. Then we also have things like the Café Roulette. This is a little bit of French here. So this is the random name that is picked for you in the system, and you get to have coffee with this person, and you can decide virtual coffee, obviously, or face-to-face coffee if you can. And you can decide to have only people from your group, your section, or to across programs. So this is the way we encourage people through the different clubs and activities that are usually activities aside of the classroom, the academic part. So in obviously in the academic, for the academics, it's with your class, but then for everything else, you get to meet with people from different programs, and why not also the executive education? Sometimes we have people companies visiting us and sending their managing partners, for example, to campus, and we can definitely try to have companies meeting with prospects, not prospects, with prospective future employees or future recruiters. So we do foster this as well. Yeah.
Right. No wonder the American schools want to play catch up and bring this sort of energy. So Sophie, if I sat down with 2 or 3 HEC Paris MIM graduates, so they've been through their experience, what do you think that they would share in terms of a standout moment? Is it the expected things? Are they really going to talk about an accounting course that they took, or something far more sort of unique and personal to them?
Yeah, well, we're fortunate enough to stay in pretty close contact with alumni, especially recent alumni. And the feedback that I get every time is that the one thing they weren't expecting that I think is quite unique in business schools is that there was really this collaborative environment versus competitive environment, because, a lot of these students are interested in similar companies or the similar industries, and they find this way of each bringing their own experiences and helping each other interview prep or think about case studies or, network with the right people. And it just creates this really strong support system, in addition to the alumni coming back and offering internships and job opportunities. But I think it was really that they thought they were going to go into this environment where there were going to be a lot of sharks around them, and it turned out to be very, very collaborative. And so I think that was a pleasant surprise, and something that they kept with them throughout their careers is, you're so much stronger when you can work well with a team and people across cultures, with a diverse way of thinking. And so that makes them really strong in their career placement after the program.
Highly collaborative. And I guess we're now a month away from COP26. We have a planet to save. Sarah, we often talk about this generation with such a strong sense of purpose at a personal and a professional level. How does that feed through in terms of the program, what they look to bring, what they're looking to get out of it, issues of sustainability, climate change, all of these are things that I'm sure you tackle within their experience at Vlerick?
Exactly. I mean, I think it's exactly also what Sophie mentioned. I mean, we'd love to see all these different profiles coming and wanting to make an impact and literally wanting to build a change. We obviously always, innovate the program as such. We've added new electives like the Green Deal, and we've added, boot camps on e-gaming and esports, because those are things that really, are working now. But also just in general, diversity, inclusion track, it's all included in the program. It's not just something that, goes next to it, but it makes a part of it. And we see that those students, they're looking for it, they're yearning for it, but indeed it's necessary, because that's how the world has just changed. I think in terms of application, we look for those students that want to make an impact, but we also definitely give them the tools to be able to do that, to work in a company and kind of spot, okay, well, where are those options to innovate or to make a difference? And how can I, as a future manager, negotiate in a different way or work in a different way that is actually inclusive and making an impact, and indeed more ecologically sound. I mean, within the program, our students can always choose to do in-company projects with any kind of business, but of course, NGOs, social projects, those are obviously increased over the last few years. So it's definitely become more important to them, and in turn to us. I mean, any of the startups that some of our students are doing, whether it's waste management or indeed any of the other things that are coming up, it's a nice dynamic between then the alumni looking for those new students and vice versa. So it's definitely something that's impacting business schools and the world around, I would say.
Right, stand aside, politicians. We want the graduates of your three schools running the world. When I asked the dean at INSEAD, Ilyan Mihov, one of the things he's been most proud of during his 8-year tenure, Virginie, he talked about the Center of Business as a force for good. But when you look at the MIM students, much as Sophie and Sarah were describing, do you get that strong sense of purpose and how they can really have positive impact through business?
This is very true, though. You are referring to the Hoffman Institute. Indeed, with the idea of having business as a force for good. And by good, we mean giving back. We mean indeed sustainability and all these responsibilities that the generations to come have to really be prepared. To be prepared for that. I think as business schools, we have the responsibility to train responsible readers. And this is why it's embedded within all the activities we do. So it's not just a nice standalone course on sustainability management, whatever you name it. It's embedded everywhere. So we have not only through the clubs, but also through the activities that will prepare people for their career, their future career. So it's working with the coach. It's understanding the impact that the leader has and the way he or she will manage her or his team is also something that we also help them understand, and the generations to come will evolve and will change and will lead in different way that the current generation or I am leading or my previous boss were leading. So this is really important. We are preparing them for that as well.
Right. All three of you make me wish that I was 22 years old all over again. The number of mistakes that I could take back. So let's imagine that I was 22 and thinking, how do I get into one of these fantastic programs? Sophie, sort of big picture, because, here they are recently finished undergrad. Maybe they have, 6, 12, up to 3 years of professional experience. What are you looking for holistically? We'll get into other details, but just in terms of, great candidate, we just get a strong sense of this individual.
Yeah, Matt, you used the perfect word. It's really holistic. That's really our approach to the admissions process, which means that you don't have to be perfect across the board. We're obviously looking at different elements, academic excellence, your internship or extracurricular activities, your management test score. I know that that's a word that scares people a little bit, but that's you should feel reassured in the sense that it is holistic. So if you feel strong in one department and a little bit weaker in another, let's say you're have doubts on your GPA, but you've managed to land really great internship experiences or have been involved in certain extracurricular activities, it can all balance out. And it's up to you to put forth your strengths because there's no specific strengths we're looking for. We're not looking for any specific internships. You can have created your own startup during a summer, or you could have worked in really any number of industries or in any different student associations. So it's really just a balance in your profile. And if you have any doubts, I'm sure that all business schools have teams in place to walk you through the process to support you, because we know it can be very stressful. So count on the schools to really support you and make the process as easy as possible.
Right. Now, you are three highly selective schools. It's reassuring to know that we don't have to be perfect in every field. Sarah, as you look at someone, even in terms of the years that they spent at university, at undergrad, beyond the classroom, there can be so many other ways that they engaged in that community. Is that something that you're looking for because you feel it'll reflect the sort of member of the Vlerick community that they're going to become?
Definitely, and it's a part of also why we really strive for that diversity. I mean, it can be because you have a great academic merit, and of course we want to reward you for that, and we'd love to see you in a program, but we have quite small group sizes. So if we have 50 students that are all, natural born leaders and type A organizers, that's not going to be a really nice group to be at. And then we won't have that collaborative dynamics. So it's also looking for those motivators or those students that might not have had the best academic track record, but did great during their internship, or maybe were president of a student organization, or indeed combined top sport with their studies. Wow, that's amazing. And those are those people that we see have a clear passion and drive to be able to do this on top of what they've done so far. And I think with us, it's really looking for that diversity within the classroom, within the school. And I think it's reflected very well also in the type of scholarships that we offer, in the sense of, women in finance, women in STEM. These people need to get more leadership positions. I mean, spoken, as somebody who has one of the few female deans as our business school, but still that has an influence, but also in the sense of, opportunity and equality, anything that has to do with really showing that you impact that diversity, that will bring a great added value to the program. So of course, if you can showcase that during your admissions interview in your application, that's something that we definitely want to see.
There's a rigor in the class from Virginie, and I guess some applicants that also are considering, Harvard has their 2+2 Stanford deferred enrollment, individuals in their final year of undergrad that are looking to sort of book their place at one of the top US schools and an MBA program 2, 3, 4 years later. It's often felt that because they're that much younger, they're not bringing 4 or 5 years of professional experience from McKinsey, Goldman, or Google. So as you look at that sort of academics, just talk us through sort of GPA and the GMAT and GRE, just so that you as the admissions team know that they're really going to thrive and flourish in the classroom.
I see your point. So the academic is important. So indeed, we will expect top grades and potentially graduated from well-known school, so internationally known school or a well-known school. And a strong GMAT. So the average is around 700. But with that said, this is again, to come back to what Sophie and Sarah just said, that would be missing a whole part of the applicant profile that we understand through the videos, through the interviews. So this is the academic rigor can be understood indeed with top marks, but some people have failed some of the courses, but then they have either managed to get a high GMAT. But if they haven't managed to get a high GMAT, that can be demonstrated with, for example, a very intensive internship. Or some people have even started their a small venture, an entrepreneurial venture. That is quite demanding as well. So there are many ways to demonstrate that you are able to have this horsepower and your ability to do everything, manage your studies, and at the same time find your next job, and at the same time build your network. So there are many different ways of demonstrating that. So we're not just looking at the academic part, yet we do, but this is definitely not something we tick and okay, this is a profile we want because we have a 770 GMAT. That would be missing a whole part of the applicant profile. So we never do that.
Right. And presumably, Sophie, there are voices then of support. We've often said for the full-time MBA, Benoit, Sarah, your colleagues for the full-time MBA, to look to recommenders, perhaps more from a professional context. But given the early career stage, there might be a great internship that has generated a recommendation. But what would your advice be in terms of who to approach to then write a letter on your behalf?
That's a good question. So we asked for 2 letters of recommendation, and I recommend one academic letter of recommendation and one professional letter of recommendation. The question oftentimes is, well, who do I pick as my referee? And the answer is really just someone who can speak to your skills as a student, or someone who can speak to your professional skills. We want to know what you're like in the classroom. We want to know what you're like in a professional environment. So it can be 2 academic letters of recommendation if you haven't really completed many internships, but a balance in the 2 is really quite nice. I read an article in the New York Times about, it was a the Harvard admissions team for the bachelor's, who said that they had read a letter of recommendation from the cleaning staff member at the high school of the student. And she's like, I know that by writing this article next year, I will have a lot of letters of recommendation from cleaning staff. It was just simple. The student would turn off the lights in classrooms that were empty or pick up trash in the hallway. So it was a really simple example of someone who just knew who that person was and the values that they embody. So that's what I'm trying to say, is get someone who really knows you well in your reference.
Right. Yeah, it's amazing how things like attentiveness, respect for others can emerge from very distinct voices. And presumably, Sarah, you're also trying to get a sense of this individual's passion for the school. Can you tell when someone has really taken the time to sort of research Vlerick, whether it's connecting with alums, and what do you like to recommend to them to get to better know the institution?
Definitely. Well, I think you can quite easily spot somebody if they don't really know which, course in the curriculum they're actually looking forward to, if they just mention something like the management courses, but not really specific, what stands out. And I think that's really part of the application process, knowing why would this program have a good match with me, and why not, with somebody else, or how in specific will it help me get to my future career. So I think in that sense, for sure, talking to some of our alumni is a great way to go about it, because this is somebody, if you can connect with them either through our UniBuddy platform, or maybe even through, by sending an email to myself or my colleagues, checking somebody from a similar background who's maybe, done the program, is now somewhere where you would like to see yourself being in 5 years. That person was in your shoes, they can tell you all about what was student life like, how is it maybe different from your hometown or anything else. So in that sense, I think our alumni are the best place to start. And then, of course, doing your due diligence like you would do with any other, job interview. You wouldn't go to a company not knowing what kind of product that they make. Well, it's the same with the school. Know what the values of the school are. Know that indeed some of the, processes behind it, for instance, like indeed with us, that we have that one-on-one coaching, that we have quite small group sizes. All of these things matter, of course, to us, because we want to see that there's a good fit. But I think it's only normal. You invest a lot of time, a lot of effort into kind of doing that year with us. It's only normal that you invest a little bit of research beforehand to kind of make sure that you know that this is the right fit. And I think that's maybe also what the nice thing about the application, I think it's what Virginie also talked about before. We do try to see that match before you come to us. So we'll definitely help you how to prepare. And if at one point in the whole process, we see that actually this master's might not get you where you want to, well, then maybe we'll refer you to one of our colleagues, or maybe we can check, well, maybe it's better to do an internship, or maybe start working for 1 or 2 years and maybe do something afterwards. So I think it's really important that students also know that, we don't have just this quota, and anyone who wants to come in and they fit the criteria, yes, sure, let's bring them in. No, it's really that personal match between you, the program, and the school, and it kind of needs to be aligned in that sense.
Right. Sophie made a great comment about, that there isn't no one perfect profile. Don't try to second guess, what we're looking for. And the richness of diversity. Virginie, just in terms of diversity, we've sometimes looked at it in terms of gender balance, but it's so much more. So as you and colleagues are sort of crafting next year's class, how do you reflect on the diversity of voices, experience, gender, underrepresented, minor? I mean, there are so many different ways to look at it.
You're right. There are so many different ways to look at it. And this is where I encourage people to look at their unique profiles or skill set or values, because we are all different. We are all very different, and we all have different ways of thinking. We have our values, as Sophie said earlier. We have our wishes. We are all different. Things have shaped us in life up until now. And by sharing your life experiences, by being honest about you and what you value, then enable us to understand the diversity you bring. Because if you remain on the surface and you just share, well, this is what I've studied, and this is what I've done so far, and this is where I want to go, that is unlikely to give us much on you and on your profile. So when we craft a class, when we recruit and admit people, we really want to understand who is behind the application form, behind the videos, behind the interview. So by being honest and sharing what is important to you, then that's where you will be able to convince the admissions committee. That's how you go about it. And this is a little bit linked to your question earlier, because if you haven't done your due diligence, then you don't know the school and what the school will bring you. And I'm absolutely convinced, and I'm going to use the word convinced again, but that if you are convinced, you will convince the admissions committee. So it's a positive spin that happens when you have done your due diligence and you know, well, this is this school for that reason and that reason, or maybe several schools. This is perfectly fine to have several schools in mind, but to have understood what they bring, and then that will be a lot easier to convince the admissions committee.
Right. There's this wonderful virtuous circle where that authenticity of self-reflection then becomes so powerful and compelling to you in the admissions office. So, the last 18 months with so much uncertainty, and yet we'll be talking, Sophie, with your colleagues from Career Services, and the message they're getting from recruiters that are so eager to hire the graduates from the Masters in Management program. Where do you sort of see demand for the program going? Will it become more international? Do you think we'll see more applicants emerging from North America to join the Europeans, Asians, and the rest of the world?
Yeah, I have to say, Matt, I'm very jealous of the question you asked Virginie, because it's one of my favorite questions. So I wanted to bounce off it, because I think Virginie said it so well, that like your students aren't going to grow in a like-minded setting. So that's the idea behind diversity. And I know that sometimes students contact us because they're like, well, diversity, I mean, I'm Spanish, I grew up in Spain, I never had the opportunity to study abroad. But what we mean by diversity, and I think Virginie said it so well, it's diversity of thought, it's diversity of religious belief, it's diversity in just your way of being, so that you can really challenge the other students in the program, and then it's the school's responsibility to offer that support and that safe environment for people to be able to express their diversity of thought. So anyway, that's I think that
really worth making.
Yeah. And then in terms of where the program is growing, well, we've noticed over the years, and despite COVID and an increase in applications from all over the world, I think that students see this crisis as a really good time to continue investing in their educations, because you're not just investing in a degree, you're not just investing in your future career, you're really investing in yourself as a future business leader, as a future purpose who leads with impact, a person that leads with impact and purpose. So I think that that's kind of how students are seeing it. I think that's why we're seeing an increase in applications from around the world. And I think that they see the career placement from these business schools as a reassuring element in the investment that they're making. So I think, it makes them feel like they'll be able, if they have to get student loans or whatever, they'll be able to, make this investment in themselves.
Right. With all of the encouragement that the three of you have given our viewers, that this will move beyond imposter syndrome, and that they couldn't possibly be looking for someone like me. And Sarah, that begins with a conversation. It begins with outreach. So in terms of next steps for our viewers, whether they're watching with us live now or catch this later on the Poets and Quants channel, what for you are sort of next steps and really getting in touch with the school?
Well, I would say definitely get in touch with either myself or my colleague, one of our admissions officers. I mean, I think you can't scroll through the website without passing my face at least twice on a web page or even on a pop-up. You can book in a meeting just in our Calendly, so you can just have a very quick either 15 or 30 minutes call. We have a lot of alumni testimonials on the website too. As we mentioned earlier, I think these are a great source of information, whether you want to see if this program is for you based on your background or where you see yourself heading later on. have a lot of open days, info sessions, I mean, fairs that we're at, same as, the other schools. I think it's just a little bit about going and looking for, okay, well, what would fit me best? Do I want to really ask some very specific questions about admissions or about the program? Do I want to have a one-on-one chat, maybe with a career advisor? Or do I just want to have, a broad overview of what kind of programs are there? Do I sign up for an info session? I think that's definitely the way to go.
Great. And perhaps last question, Virginie, with well-established programs already in the Masters in Management field, it was a leap of faith for INSEAD to launch the program. From your perspective, and not just the candidates that became the admits and now the graduates, what have you enjoyed most through that launch and the journey and bringing in this new generation of MIM students?
I wasn't ready for that question, but I immediately have an answer, because it's refreshing. It's humbling. It's amazing to see those 22, and to your point earlier, Matt, it makes me wonder, what was I doing when I was 22? I don't remember. I had done so much already. So it is very refreshing. I was very happy to be part of the launch of this program. I think it's really, for me, a lifetime opportunity. We had launched other programs, obviously, but this one was very special, by the kind of students we are recruiting, by the diversity we have had since the very beginning, by how much those 20 plus incoming students were motivated, and also probably because they are the age of my kids. So it kind of resonates with me, and their appetite for having an impact, and a sense of purpose. So I was really, really humbled by this. So I'm grateful for INSEAD to have started this program and to have been part of the adventure, definitely.
It's lovely for me to host three individuals so passionate about what you do, the belief in three outstanding schools, and of course the individuals that then become part of this. That always comes across when we share these panels together. And I think for our viewers, it's a great first step. You're so encouraging. I'm sure that viewers will be reaching out, and I hope, I wish all of them luck in their personal journey and becoming future students and graduates of your schools. But Sophie, Sarah, Virginie, it was a lovely panel. Thanks for so much encouragement, and to our viewers. Thanks for being with us.
Thanks to you, Matt.
Thanks to you.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye.